A mood of dismay has settled over New Orleans after a federal judge's decision to grant a new trial for 5 former New Orleans police officers. They were convicted after the killing of unarmed people fleeing the flooded city after Hurricane Katrina. The community is again forced to face local corruption, this time among prosecutors who are supposed to protect them. Troeh is news director for National Public Radio Station in New Orleans and has been following the community reaction on the ruling. Thank you for taking some time with us. I do appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks, Debbie.
And just to remind everybody, we said it a little bit in the introduction, but just remind people of the details of what happened.
Sure. Well, in 2005, in the days after Katrina hit and the city flooded, the levees failed, there was an absolute feeling of law and order being broken in the city. Nevertheless, the people charged to protect the citizens who remained in the city were the police officers and other first responders. And this was a case where officers arrived. They were responding to a call of an officer down. When they arrived on the scene, however, the trial that is now being in question determined that they shot at unarmed civilians. It took 6 years for a conviction to be won against these officers. Some of them were directly involved in the shootings in which 2 men died and several people were wounded. And there was also an extensive cover-up, and one of the officers convicted was charged with that cover-up. So it took 6 years for the conviction to happen, and now we're seeing that conviction being overturned. A federal judge found that the prosecutors were making online comments during the case, during the trial, on NOLA.com, which is a prominent news website here. They were using anonymous names to release information about the case, to sully the reputations of the officers, and in some cases these were people specifically charged with keeping the case pure, with making sure that the officers weren't getting a bad rap in public.
Let me jump in there, Eve, just for a second, because I don't want to run out of time and want to talk about the reaction. So let's talk about what has been the overarching reaction to the judge's decision to throw out the convictions, call for a new trial.
Well, the family members of those who were killed say that they're urging the Department of Justice to appeal this decision. They would like the conviction to stand if that's at all possible. I think overall this raises questions about the integrity of yet another public justice institution in New Orleans, the U.S. Attorney's Office under Jim Letton, who has now stepped down as U.S. Attorney. We have a new one coming in. But people are asking all kinds of questions, like whether these officers can even get a fair trial in New Orleans, and, do all the cases under the U.S. Attorney's Office need to be retried because of this problem with online comments. It takes the city back to a very dark time. The conviction was a major victory for civil rights to a lot of people, and we were told that it would mean a new day for the police officers, for the NOPD, for the city in general. And now that we not only have to revisit that case with a new trial potentially, but also have to wonder about another institution, the U.S. Attorney's Office, just leads to a real feeling of disappointment here in the city.
As I did some of my reading on this story and review and bringing myself back up to speed on this, I just found it a little bit interesting that most of the outrage is directed at the judge's decision. And the judge's decision is based on findings of prosecutorial misconduct. Is anybody upset with the prosecutors bungling this? Behaving improperly?
I think there are plenty of people upset with the prosecutors bungling this. It's a confusing case to get your head around. It's a confusing thing to understand that it's not so much the question of whether the comments made online actually affected the jury's decision in the trial. It's just that conduct was so improper that we can't say that the trial was fair. I think the outrage against the judge's decision probably mostly has to do with some sort of confusion or just a general emotional reaction to the fact that now these officers may get out of prison. One of the officers, in fact, today has applied to be released from prison. The officer who got the shortest sentence, actually, he got 6 years for the cover-up, and he's been serving in federal prison in Virginia, has asked to be released. And so I think that sense of public outrage, whether justice was served or whether justice was not served in the trial because of the prosecutor's conduct, doesn't negate just the emotional reaction to the fact that these officers, who many see as symbols of longstanding corruption in the police department, may now be released or may not be proven guilty. We just have to open up this wound and go back there all over again.
Yeah, so unfortunate on many, many levels. Eve Troeh, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye.